Hi, today I'm in studio with actor Chin Han. You may not know his name, but you will definitely recognize him from The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. He was named one of Asia's 25 greatest actors of all time and appears in the upcoming Independence Day 2 Resurgence as a Chinese space squadron leader. Find out what it was like battling aliens coming up now on Spotlight On.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's iTalk Movies.
Hey guys, I'm Zoe Hewitt, and I'm here today in studio with Singaporean actor Chin Han. Before we get going, Chin Han, where can everyone find you on social media?
You can find me at The Chin Han on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Great, and you can find me at Zoe Said What, that's Zoe Said What, and Independence Day coming out.
Yes.
So excited for this huge, fun popcorn blockbuster.
Yes.
The first one came out 20 years ago, and it actually won an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, which is fantastic. What was it like working on this great, big action blockbuster?
Well, it's very exciting. It's my second time working with Roland Emmerich, the first one being on 2012. So it's very nice to be reunited with Roland for this movie. You know, I mean, he's a guy whose heart is as big as his, vision for spectacle. And it was also, for me, growing up, loving the movie and having seen it so many times, when I stepped on set for the first day and meeting Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum, I felt like I was being reunited with them as well, because I had become so familiar with those characters. So, no, it was a great time. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
And did you go back and watch the first one to brush up on it?
Yeah, I did, and I realized that movie had so much going for it. I mean, it had humor, it had heart, and then it had some kick-ass visual effects as well. I mean, that still hold up to this day.
Absolutely. And what was it like when you got the call for casting, and did your relationship with Roland lead to this role?
No, well, I mean, that's the thing, though. Roland has been such a dear friend over these years, but originally the role was written for an older character, but as the script evolved and, the character evolved as well with the script, it was a better fit for me. And then later on in the casting process, my name came up, and, it was right. So we did it, and here we are.
And how many of your scenes were filmed on an actual set versus a green screen?
Well, Roland is a master of visual effects, but, the thing is, he likes practical effects a lot. And this was very clear when we did 2012 as well. The sets he builds for real. So basically, I'm the commander of the moon base. And moon base is like one of the biggest sets I've ever been on. And it has like huge hangars with hybrid fighters, and these fighters are built to scale. So you can actually climb into these fighters, short of flying away in one of them. You can actually climb into these fighters, and everything is just the size that it's meant to be. And it's very immersive. It's very easy to act in that kind of environment. Sometimes with blue screen or green screen, I mean, they will show you previs, so they'll show you like what it looks like and the scale of it, but it's still nothing like having a physical set to touch and to feel.
Right,
Yeah.
and definitely being in the experience and having that set. So when you say it was one of the biggest sets you've ever been on, just to give people an idea, sets can range from anything as small as your bedroom at home, let's say, to 2- and 3-story sets that take up an entire soundstage.
Yes.
So what can you give us an idea of how big that set actually was in proportion to something else?
It's how big is it? It's definitely bigger than my apartment in my condo in Los Angeles. It's the size of it's the size of a few tennis courts, I would say.
Wow.
Or it's and the hangars are even bigger than that. So hangar would be the size of a, let's say, I wouldn't say a football field, but I mean a considerable space. So, I mean, all of it is built up, and with these giant windows that you look up, into space. And it just felt like I was on the moon. I mean, I don't want to underrepresent or overrepresent the space, but let's say you can get lost in it.
Yeah.
And I was lost in it at some point in time. I remember when Roland yelled cut, and I had to go get a drink, and when I came back, I couldn't find my way back onto set. So.
Well, that's a really good indicator of how big the set is. I mean, that really is
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
to be able to walk around and get lost because it's so large.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about your role in the movie and how you relate to the other main characters who have returned?
I play the commander of the moon base. The moon base is part of the Earth space defense, and we watch over the Earth from above. Whereas on the ground is General Adams, played by William Fichtner, who's taking care of all the ground forces. So we kind of have taken all the alien technology and then used it and built our own army and our own weapons, and are now in a very secure space to take care of the Earth. Of course, the aliens come back and bigger and meaner with even more advanced weapons. I'm also the commander of a group of pilots, one of whom is played by Liam Hemsworth, and the other by this big Chinese star, Angela Baby, Jesse Usher, who plays Will Smith's son. And this is a bunch of very hotshot pilots that I have to keep in line from time to time. So that's my relationship with the rest of the cast in this film.
And I think it feels like so much fun that you get to play this boss character, really,
Yeah.
of everyone else. And did you feel like when everyone yelled, when cut was yelled, that you still wanted to keep, nose to the grindstone, guys?
Well, I stay in character as long as I can. So but I would. Roland is the boss on that set. I mean, he's the commander in chief, and everyone loves him and respects him, and so he's in charge of that set.
And it's always really fun too when you have a director who's so wonderful and who creates that great sort of environment. We hear so many times about directors who people try not to work with again. So the fact that you have circled back around and you've stayed in touch and have remained friends. And one of the things that was so fascinating with the first movie and these visual effects is that I think it was the very first time we saw big things like the White House being blown up. I think that was the first time. What in this movie gets blown up that it's like, yes, there it goes.
Wow, there's so many things that get blown up. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's massive destruction because as you can see from the trailer, this spaceship that comes over the Earth has its own gravitational field. So it pulls up everything from the Earth. But as Jeff Goldblum says, so succinctly, what goes up must come down, and it all comes crashing down. And you will see a lot of landmarks, some of which you will definitely recognize. But I won't spoil the fun for you because it's fun to see what you can spot.
Absolutely. I think I agree that it's fun to hear what's happening and it's fun to hear sometimes behind the scenes, but you also can ruin the movie magic if you hear too much, right? We want to know exactly what's getting blown up. We want to see it. We don't want to hear, too much in advance.
I love going to the theater, I mean, the cinema is my favorite place to be. I would recommend anyone have this be a cinematic experience because I saw it last night, and sound effects and visual effects wise, I knew the story. I was acting in the movie, and even then I was blown away by it. I found myself having to catch my breath at the end of it. Yeah.
Which is great. That's a great sign for the rest of us who are eager to see it and love these great big action movies. Yeah. Now, your huge break in American cinema was another really big action movie, The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger.
Oh, the indie movie?
Yeah, that little one. I'm sorry, I just assumed. So when you got that call, I understand you got the call that Christopher Nolan wanted to meet you for this movie, and without knowing anything about the role or the script, you were just like, I'm in, it's Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I remember watching Batman Begins and thinking about how wonderful that job, how wonderful that movie was, and then Memento and, The Prestige. And so, when he said, when I got the call from John Papsadera, who's the casting director, I was beside myself, but it still took a while. It took about 6 weeks before, with all the approvals and Warner Brothers and producers, and obviously Chris has the final say on anything. And then, I definitely, I would, to this day, I mean, I'll do anything that he asked me to do, just because he's such a visionary director.
And it's so interesting that you say it takes 6 weeks, because I think sometimes people assume, oh, look, the director wanted you. That's, done deal. But 6 weeks is also a long time to be waiting on pins and needles to hear if you have this big part that you're excited about.
Yeah.
And so during that period, what did you do so you basically didn't go crazy wondering, is it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you try to stay sane. You go for long walks on beaches, and watch the sunsets. Wondering if things are. I mean, if it's going to happen, but it was a very stressful time. But I managed to kind of pull it together and make it work. So that was great.
And a lot of times we hear on set that people say, oh yeah, I just had a feeling it was going to be a big movie and it was going to do great. So how did it feel on that set? Did you have that feeling of, I know this is going to be an amazing movie?
Well, you get a feeling. I mean, nothing is for sure, right? I mean, in the world of movie making, you get a feeling. I think my first day on set was so striking, as an experience, because I got on set. They flew me to London, and then they drove me out for 2 hours to Coddington, and then they said, Chris, we'll see you now. They took me into this hangar where they were shooting this stuff, and in front of me was the Batmobile, and then it was the Bat Pod, which is the Bat Cycle, and it was like Christian Bale doing a photo shoot in his Batman outfit, and big, and at that point in time, I thought, wow, this is just too much, this is like a dream come true. But I think what was fascinating was when I first saw the Joker. Obviously, when I saw Heath and all that makeup, and the way he was moving and the way he was talking, and how it was so fresh, and it was changing from, with every scene he would come up with something new. I thought, wow, even if it wasn't the commercial success that it is today, this will be a very interesting movie, and that will be one memorable performance. Yeah.
And when you can feel that happening, there's that like tingle of, this is amazing. I'm seeing something amazing happening in front of me, which is so exciting as well to be part of that great experience. And through all of your amazing experiences, you've been recently named one of Asia's 25 greatest actors, which by CNN Go, which is a division of CNN.
Yeah.
Now, when you heard that news, how did you react to that?
Well, I think the first thing was like, I'm not done yet. So, I'm still working. It's flattering, but I think my day-to-day obviously doesn't reflect that. I don't have butlers and chauffeurs coming up to me saying, hey, top 25 greatest actor of all time, where can I drive you today? The reality of it is still, you're working, and then all I want to do is actually get on these crazy big sets and have fun with directors I want to work with.
And did it feel like a bit of vindication for you? Because here you grew up with a more traditional Chinese family, your friends all went off to school to become doctors and lawyers. Yeah. And hey, I want to be an actor, Mom and Dad.
I think I think what I'm vindicated by is like, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, right? So if one of my nieces and nephews comes up to me and says, I love that film, that's my vindication. I mean, they're my toughest critics, I have to say, my family. So if anything, my sister or my mom or my brother, come up to me and say they loved, and that's good enough for me, really.
You say, thank you for loving it, and don't forget I'm a top 25 actor, right?
Yeah, no, as I said, it's very it's very flattering.
And before you became the top 25 actor, which I feel like now is such a great title, you did go to college and get a degree in economics and linguistics. Yeah. So even going to school, did you know that after you had that degree, you would be moving on to act?
I actually knew that. I mean, when I was studying, for economics and linguistics, I just knew it was just a matter of time before I did, went back to acting. I think at some point in time it was just, denial. I was in denial. I said, let's just be sensible, you know. But sometimes the sensibility is the enemy of creativity, you know. I think you just have to be a bit reckless sometimes if you want to create. I think that's just what you have to do. So I held it off for the longest time, but after I graduated, I mean, I just couldn't deny it anymore. I had to do it.
And did you think that linguistics would help you along the way with acting?
Yes, I mean, because you know, scripts require a certain amount of you know, dissecting and analysis when when you're working on them, you know, unless you're doing just a purely action movie. I came from the theater, so I do enjoy the written word. I love the classics. I like the modern classics and the old classics, like Shakespeare, Moliere, and Racine. But it has served me well.
And as a Singaporean / Chinese actor, have you seen the reaction to you as maybe like a bit of a surprise? Like, whoa, you're not speaking with a Chinese accent. I think people sometimes in America forget, like, oh, in Singapore, they also speak English.
Well, the number of times that someone comes up to me and says, oh, wow, you speak very good English, but, I thank them for it. But I also have to remind them that I've been speaking it since I was a child. I'm not that talented. I might be a little talented, but not that talented. I've spoken and people are surprised. On top of the fact that it's not interesting for me to play characters that don't speak the stereotypical characters that speak a kind of pidgin English, or that that you might have seen back in the 60s or 70s, or even to a certain extent in the 80s as well. I'm just not drawn to that kind of material.
And so when jobs like that do come up, do you look at them with a specific eye for, okay, this is too much stereotype, like I'm not interested?
Yeah, I do. And then I call my managers and I give them an earful. Why did you send this my way? No, but yeah, I mean, I'm just not, I mean, that's not so interesting for me, than to play like real characters, not race-specific characters. I find, are fascinating.
Absolutely, and where anyone can play any character. And China so much now is really taking apart in American cinema, not to mention, of course, China has a huge cinema of its own. Do you feel like that's given you opportunity for a lot more crossover?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it's undeniable that market is growing, in a very fast-paced and big way. So, as time goes on, we'll be seeing a lot more co-productions. Co-productions actually means more productions, and more productions just means more work for actors of whatever race, I think it is a very exciting time, because I think world cinema is becoming really world cinema. The past world cinema meant movies from Scandinavia, or some remote part of, Asia, or, of the Middle East. But now world cinema means really everything, including Hollywood films.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also Americans tend to not be as interested in reading subtitles. So that's a big difference. And now I feel like lately that's changing. I mean, even in Captain America, we got some subtitles. So it's just interesting how I think that's evolving to understand that, okay, just because I have to read the movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Yeah, no, it just means that you have to work a little harder, but, it is fun to see performances in the languages that they're meant to be in. Gone are the days of the kung fu movies where the mouths are moving and they're saying something else. Now it's really opening up the kinds of movies that are available to people, and things like Netflix. It's so easy to get a movie from Italy now, or from Norway. In the past, you would have to go to specialty DVD shops to look for them. Now with that, you can check out things, and I think the availability is what's making people more accepting of reading subtitles.
Right, which is an interesting point. It used to be so difficult, and now, especially with the internet and being able to watch things online even and streaming, we get that. But your example of kung fu movies is interesting because I always think one of the other stereotypes of Asian actors is, well, of course you must know martial arts.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that comes up a lot as well for you?
Well, that does come up a lot, but it's a good thing that I know martial arts. So, not really. I love cross stitching and
Underwater basket weaving.
playing croquet. But no, I mean, I had to learn martial arts for Marco Polo. So I mean, that was I think the first time I had to do martial arts, and which was great. I mean, I enjoyed the experience very, very much. But you're right. I mean, there are people who expect you to either take on certain professions or to be able to do certain things.
And did you feel like when you were getting started in the U.S. at least that was a hindrance, not knowing martial arts?
No, I've always been athletic, so I mean that's not that much of an issue for me. I'm picking it up, but I mean there are real martial artists out there,
right.
and my dad himself was a Tai Chi master.
Oh, wow.
He really was. I mean, I grew up watching him do his stuff. He had been practicing Tai Chi for decades. So I have real respect for that, and I would only not do it out of respect for the people who actually can do it, But otherwise, it's movie magic, and I'm happy to do the right part.
Right. We can all do anything with movie magic, right? And you've got a really cool, fun sci-fi movie coming up next, Ghost in the Shell, that's based on a Japanese story. So can you tell us about the story for people who aren't familiar with the manga?
Well, we're in production right now, so I can't say too much about it. But for the people who are familiar with it, it's basically about a future in which cybernetic enhancements are very, very common. So biology and technology have become intertwined and have become a very huge part of society. But with that, you have a whole society and worlds that are actually being open to cyber terrorism. And basically the story of Ghost in the Shell is about this group led by this wonderful character by the name of Major, and they are this group that are tasked to fight cybercrime.
And I think also it's interesting then with the internet and all of the cyber crime shows and things that have come up. I think back to, I think it was the 90s when the movie The Net came out with Sandra Bullock, and we were just starting to get worried about people taking our identities. And now not only is it a very real, legitimate concern, but it's enough of a concern that we see these movies that are big, scary movies in the way that we understand, yes, this can happen.
Yeah, I mean, the manga itself came out 30 years ago, so it was very prophetic, I mean, so I think it's a very timely movie. It's very scary as well if you think about how, we're all kind of linked up, right? Everything's synced. If one goes down, everything goes down, really. Yeah.
And do you think that there's a difference for you in the terror factor, I suppose, from the aliens of Independence Day versus the cyber terrorism and things that can happen that are maybe a little more grounded?
Well, I mean, I think that the cyber terrorism in Ghost is from within. So it's people hacking into you and actually making you do things that you don't even consciously do. So it's changing your wiring, changing your programming. So the enemy is actually from within, compared to an enemy coming from outside. So let's say this is the difference between probably the cybercrime and the aliens coming from outside. Aliens would be something like a vampire or something, and then the cybercrime from within would be something like Jekyll and Hyde. It is within you, know. So I think anything that comes from within you is scary. I think that's why a movie like Alien is as successful as it is, because it really tapped into fears of like something inside you coming out that's scary, right?
Right, and things that you almost feel like you can't control, whereas there's this sense that you can control the aliens coming down, but you can't control what's inside.
Yeah, man, having said that though, I mean, you should see the aliens in Independence Day Resurgence, because I don't think you can control those aliens either. Because those aliens are big. I'm not going to tell you how big they are, but they are big. Yeah.
And absolutely, and that's so much fun, the big action and seeing also what the new incarnation of aliens looks like, because we have so many movies that show us different styles, you could say, of aliens. So
yeah. No, I mean, this is I think Weta Workshops, which did all the stuff for Lord of the Rings and a lot of great films. I mean, they worked on the alien design for Independence Day Resurgence. I think it's great. Yeah, it's a great adventure.
And you are a bit of a Renaissance man yourself, because of course we've talked a lot about your acting, but you also direct, you play piano, you compose. So what is next for you on a personal level aside from acting in other projects?
Personally, I would love to, I think I'd love to be able to surf, I think. And, living in LA, that's, it's just, it's at my doorstep. And it's something that I've wanted to do, but never gotten around to. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's should be hoping you work less then, so you have time to surf? I'm not sure.
You know what, how about, we do both at the same time? Maybe we can
a surfing movie is
do
next.
a surfing movie. Yeah, that could be fun.
And do you find that
Blue Crush 3
yes
or something?
Absolutely. And do you find that also working on your own projects helps make you more well-rounded for when you go into other projects as an actor, like Independence Day or Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, I think I'm a better, I think I'm a more cooperative actor, having worked as a director, producer, because I kind of understand, how difficult the job is. The job is so unbelievably difficult. So, it helps me, as an actor to understand what the director's job is, producer's job is, so that I can service their vision. Because at the end of the day, an actor is there to service the director's vision. It's his movie, and I just want to be able to give him or her everything I can.
That's a great statement, because that's also, I feel like, very egoless, that you're saying, I'm just part of the director's vision. And I think that's something we don't hear very frequently. People frequently say, like, well, I am the vision. But it's interesting how you phrased that. Yeah. And do you feel like that is because of your background then and how you've grown up, and that you weren't always headed in this direction, I guess, of an actor, where you had to go to school, you had to do something else?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think also working in the theater, where it's very cooperative, I think that you only have each other to rely on when you're on stage, right? I mean, from the moment the curtains go up to the curtains go down, if you wanna go it alone on a stage, you're pretty much alone out there, in front of 1,000 or 1,000 people a night, or it teaches you to be cooperative, I think. So in terms of when I started doing films and stuff, that was the same kind of philosophy I took to it.
And final question for you. So I understand your family still lives in Singapore. How often do you get to see them? And since movies don't always come out at the same time, how did they get to see your big projects?
Well, I go back once a year. It doesn't always get to come out at the same time, but like with Netflix is now worldwide, but with these big movies, they open date to date now, right? I mean, so sometimes I'm able to call them and they're just about to go into the theater. I'm about to go into the premiere. The world has become so much smaller. I can't even tell you, But it's great to know that they are watching it, as I am. Watching it too, thousands and thousands of miles away, So yeah, that's fun.
Well, they must feel so proud and excited that their son has now really made use of this. Not a doctor, not a lawyer, but clearly a very successful actor. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really fantastic.
Thank you.
And before we wrap up, where can everyone find you again on social media?
They can find me at the Chin Han on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And hopefully you'll be posting some photos from the premiere tonight.
Yes, I will be updating my friends and fans.
Great, so we'll have to stay tuned. And I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. And until next time, have a great time ahead, you guys. Thanks a lot.
See you. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners and principals.